All right, looks like I'm live. Welcome to Bruce Lombardo 75. We're doing some comic book reviews today. Been a while since I've done one of these, and I really enjoy the ability to stream and such, but sometimes real life will knock on your door and dump out your cart and fuck up all your shit, and you got to do things like, I don't know, change jobs, change careers, drift, figure out where you want to go next, and life is good. But you just have to learn how to be good with it. So that's what we did. That's what I've done for the past 6 months, really, because unfortunately, the company I worked for at the time, C&J Energy Services, decided to be financially insolvent, make a bunch of shitty decisions based out of issues they had with Houston and the people that we had involved with our upper management. And there's a thing called nepotism, which if you're in the oil field, you've never heard or never seen nepotism in action. Probably if you're in the private or public sector, you've probably never had to deal with nepotism. I'm just saying, this is something that you got to deal with. It's a big boy problem. So dealt with that and bounced around a couple jobs. Was a concrete cutter for a bit, although I never cut the concrete because of my insurance issues with the company I worked for. And then, let's see, I did car sales for a little bit. And that would have been fine, but the company I worked for had really differing opinions on how to close customer base. And whenever you provide proof that we have a down payment available, here's what they want to pay a month, and they still shut you down. After about 7 or 8 proposals within 3 days' time, you're like, I don't need to deal with this company because I've made no commission in 3 days. And me, I have an addiction. I like things that are kind of not the finer things in life, but I have my things I like. Like I like my toys, I like my miniatures, I like my hobbies, I like power. Electricity is a good thing, and it's just one of those things that you got to have. And so we I've had some good difficulties this year, and I've learned some things about myself, and I've learned what I'm capable of doing, which is if you as a person you've not been challenged in a while, you get comfortable. And that's where I was at the end of last year. I think I even made a video where I was always going to be in the oil field if I could help it, which I still would love to be in the oil field. But there are certain people that, okay, well, you're making it possible for us to not be in the oil field right now. And this is a fourth quarter after January 1st or 2nd. You see the floodgates of employment just open in the oil field. It doesn't really matter. This being an election year, it's going to impact it a little bit because the oil field companies will try to throw a lot of money at both parties that are major in the U.S., and that's what happens. With all of that said, I'm not really worried about anything. I've learned to not have an ulcer. I've learned how to start fighting for my own personal health a little bit better. I've tried to minimize my amount of excessive eating, although my fat face will disagree with me on that. Like, oh, you just had a fig Newton today. Yeah, shut up, fat face. Anyway, so we've got some things going on. My personal life is not skew asunder. Life is good. And I really got to say that even though I don't value the holiday season worth a shit, I hate holidays for a very natural reason. I like money, and typically throughout the summer and spring, I'm busy catching up. It'll be about another year like this where I'll be working towards throwing a lot of money in investments that I really can't touch and such. And after this, after my 45th summer hits, I'll probably be at the end of that and be able to just start sitting back and watching things accrue naturally through the power of compounding interest. But I don't usually have a lot of money that I need for a job or living or whatever. This year, I fell into a really good deal outside of the oil field just maybe a few weeks back. It's not the greatest job in the world. I'll probably be gone for long periods of time, like the oil field. But I'm pretty happy with the way things have gone because it could have gone a lot worse. I could have lost my car. I could have lost my apartment. I could have lost everything. I could have had to start selling my hobby shit. As a hobbyist, you don't ever want to sell, even though none of these figures mean anything to me. I don't want to sell a single one of them because they have a purpose in my head. And it's just how life is. You learn how to deal and how to acclimate and how to adjust. And you've become more of a vocational chameleon if you need to. As a salesperson, I wasn't bad. I was able to get words yes out of people quite regularly. And it wasn't for any lack of trying. It's just the fact that there's a big disagreement in policy. But I'm going to tell everybody that lives in the San Antonio or surrounding area, if you need a brand new Honda, you want to go to Gun Honda. And that's all I'm going to say about that. They have a good sales staff. They have a great service department. There are other Honda dealerships in the area. Their service departments aren't that bad. Personal experience with the service department out at Hill Country Honda, those people are really nice. It is a Honda service department. So anytime you go to a Honda service department, you know what you're going to pay beforehand. So you can't say, well, they were too expensive. You bought a Honda. Okay. It's a poor man's Cadillac. Today's broadcast is powered by AK Espresso by Black Rifle Coffee. Black Rifle Coffee, for people who like seeing explosions and fun shit and girls in bikinis and dogs. We thank you for your service. All right. Meat of today's video. Really didn't want to get too deep into the last video I did about the Dark Horse comics because they were really good, but I felt like we needed to go a little further and things would wrap up in the month of December. The Starcraft Survivor series is one of the better storylines in comics that I've read. I read comics on and off for the past few years. This series inspired me to write reviews on it because it was that well done. The artwork, these are the last two issues of the four-issue series. The artwork in these is absolutely amazing. Like, you have this scene here where the fucking Protoss just absolutely wastes a kill team that's designed to go after it. But the Dark Templars are always a nasty group of individuals. They have the side blades. They operate by stealth, and she follows a group of humans as they are fleeing into the abyss of space, and they start to settle and colonize, and they try to do things to where they can survive again once they land on the planet. Typical StarCraft storyline for any single player skirmish or multiplayer skirmish game. But she manages to take out people behind the scenes, and she's got her claws in deep on one human. Caleb is just her little puppet for 3 issues, and finally, after the 4th issue starts, you start seeing some real character development with him as he starts standing up for himself a little more and a little more. And it's not a very long comic book. It's, I believe, a 32-page or 24-page comic. But for the $4 price for each of these, so you're spending $16 plus tax for all 4 of these comics. If you like science fiction, if you like espionage, if you like a good story, you're not going to go wrong with putting your time into reading and enjoying this comic. I've read the 4-issue series 3 times now after this one finally was released, and I thought that this is really solid. In fact, it's probably one of the more, I guess you'd say, soft sci-fi or space opera storylines in comics we've had in years, and thankfully it's in a series that most of us recognize, because if you're watching my videos, you like geek culture, so you probably understand Dungeons and Dragons, you understand Warcraft, and you understand Starcraft. Now, I'm not a big fan of WotC or Blizzard because of their social media and their woke practices right now. And if you guys want to lose money by embracing a bunch of ideas that are guaranteed to drive customers away, go ahead. Star Wars is doing a banner job of that. And Marvel lost a fuck ton of money with Captain Marvel, no matter what they say. It was $1 billion earner. Yeah, a lot of the money came from Fandango, which was given to them by Disney to buy tickets in advance. Have fun. Try to dispute it. Fight me. Um, there's a really good case for people that enjoy good stories to read this. Caleb, at the very end, he's a hero. In the most brutal sense of that, Caleb's a hero. It ends on a bright note, to say the least. Not trying to be smart or cute, but this is one of the better comic series I've read. I'll probably borrow it whenever I start writing something science fiction in the future. I'm not in the mood to run the alternative Starcraft RPG, although some of you don't even know what the fuck that is because that's 20 years old. But let me just say that back in the day, Wizards of the Coast had the license to StarCraft for the D&D Next Engine back before 3.0 even came out. And it was a pretty good license. I mean, they gave a lot of information for the RPG. The other half of today's little piece is the Orville. Now, these are the third and fourth comic books in the series. The Orville is based on the Fox, now Hulu broadcast show. It's one of the better science fiction shows on the web and on broadcast right now. I've got to say that if you want to watch the best, The Expanse is worth your money. You actually are going to get a lot of bang for your value if you go through The Expanse and watch a few episodes week by week. And if you're like me, you kind of wish you could share them with your father, but you're if you're also like me, your parents live in a remote portion of the United States that doesn't have good broadband, or at least affordable broadband, because let's just face it, everything in Illinois, unless you're in Chicago or St. Louis area, those areas really, what can you do in Springfield? What can you do in Peoria? Well, you watch your job get shipped off to a state without taxes. Yes, everything for me revolves around jobs. It should. Everything for you should revolve around you being able to be fungible and keep your money going. If you can't do that, you need to figure out what your priorities are. Anyway, back to the Orville. As the Orville continues its massive mission in space, they bump into a group of humans that have gone on a religious pilgrimage, and they don't really realize it at first, but after some small questions, it turns into an interrogation, and they realize that these humans are going towards Krill space because of their changed religion to the Avis religion, or Avis. I didn't really want to like this adventure too much, as it's been documented before. I'm not a fan of certain religions which are counterproductive to civilization. Therefore, I'm only a moderate fan of widespread Christianity because most of it, I'm going to say this, I'm not going to be popular. Most of Christianity is really good. To love thy neighbor, to forgive other people, turn the other cheek, all that stuff really isn't bad. It's built to building communities. It's what it does. However, there's things that happen in big organized religion that I really don't like, which Catholic Church has always been fighting since the dawn of time, because for some odd reason they say you can't marry, but here's a little altar boy. And then they rearrange parishes and priests and they swap, and it's just a big mess. And it became a big thing in the 90s and 2000s, and that's why I really don't like Catholicism. Also, really not a big fan of Islam. No surprise there. So, regardless, reading this story kind of made me evaluate some things about what do I like about those religions. And as much as I would like to say that the Orville comic is a worth your time comic, this one here had a lot of humor till about the last quarter of the series, the 2-issue series. So like the last half of book number 4 was fairly serious in tone. There was a little bit of comedy in it. It was very well done. It's just a story that it's like, I guess maybe I'm one of those sensitive people that don't laugh at religion too much. I'm not a person that truly feels that, you know, we can poke fun at everything, but I try to. I try to make fun of Christianity. I make fun of Islam every chance I get. But these people that are in a suicide mission to worship a religion practiced by their enemy, well, I mean, it's understandable that some people kind of get stuck in a situation. There was a Fox News collaborator that he was captured by Al Qaeda a few years back, and he converted under the sword to Islam, and he doesn't really come out in public much. There's been other issues, similar situations like that, but I just I read this one here and I had gritted teeth. I'm not going to say it is totally worth your dollar. It is a great Orville story, but did Bruce really like it? Not really. It was more chore filled for me to get through, and I would like to have said that this is a multiple read, but I've only read it twice, and I probably won't read this one again. I'll probably go back to issues 1 and 2 because that was a fantastic piece. But I'm going to continue to buy the Orville comics because it's not woke. It's not saying they want to go broke. It's just that it was a story that, boy, do I really want to get into that? No. Kind of like the same way that I can read most of Douglas Adams or Terry Pratchett. Both of those guys are excellent satirists, but there's certain topics that, like, sometimes Adams was worse at it than Pratchett. Pratchett deals with religion a lot better with humor. Douglas Adams moderately gets edgy. And the more you sit and don't read it and just analyze the last 3 paragraphs, the worse it gets. Okay? But if you can just continue the narrative, you find that, okay, it works out great. But if you stop and you think about it too much, you're like, what the fuck? And that was my problem with it. And I really should probably try to read this comic series one more time because and that was my mistake. I stopped and I overanalyzed it. Shouldn't have, but I did. Seth MacFarlane, do I like him? I love him as a writer. I think he's a great writer. He's probably one of the best writers that we have in the modern day because he truly doesn't give a shit about anybody else's feelings except for his own. That way he can write the stories he wants to write, which is why I like American Dad, which is why I still watch Family Guy. I would like to say he's better than South Park, but this last couple of seasons of South Park have really got me back going into South Park again, and I've started watching it, not from the beginning because you have like seasons 4 through 7, which I just thought were boring as shit. There's like one laugh per episode, and that's far too little for the amount of time I got to invest. Okay, I compared it to Pratchett and Adams. It's a buy. Anyway, that wraps up today's comic book reviews. I know that this wasn't exactly probably what you guys were expecting. I'm not on here as much as I'd like to be. I'll be moving a friend of mine into my apartment just for the fact that, get him to where he's mentally more healthy than where he is right now. I think anybody that's got a situation on their hands where they've got close friends or family that are in need, you don't want to let them continue down that same pathway to where they continue to just be toxic to themselves or they're in an environment to where they can't seem to find a way out. So you got to sometimes do things like, open up your home or try to steer them in a direction that might not allow you to see them or partake in their lives as much, but it gets them in a more functional capacity to where they can deal with adversity so much better. This roommate of mine, no, he's not gay. No, I'm not gay, but he's a brother, and he's another vet. Which it seems like all the friends I have that they all room together. They're not like a bunch of Californians that are in a bungalow, single bedroom, 17 ferrets, a couple of cats that are in heat, and 6 people in a studio apartment. No, they're more like you got like however many people equal however many bedrooms, and they're all veterans, and they all pretty much drink to themselves, and They do what they have to in order to remain functional and keep money rolling in, but they go through some hellacious fucking trials. And that's kind of like what most of me and my friends have done over the past few years, because we have kind of learned how to adapt to things, even though that I didn't adapt to Illinois, which I just chose not to adapt to Illinois. I just didn't want to. I hated everything about the downstate life, and I wasn't willing to move upstate because I still hate Illinois, and that's all part of it. And I'm getting to the point where with Texas, I love Texans. I don't like the government, and I don't like the people that are involved with it on the local level. It's far too blue for me. And like I was mentioning in a chat room earlier today, like San Antonio's done a lot of things I don't like. But one thing they did smart was they figured out flow control. And they figured out that if they dug a tunnel under the city, under the downtown portion, and they flood 1/4 of it in the east side, which, sorry about you Easters, you eastern side San Antonio people, but like the eastern quarter of the city will occasionally flood because otherwise the downtown would flood. And it just is set up on a hill, and so they just let the water go in and flow out. And after about a day and a half, the east side is mostly dry. The downtown is definitely dry, and that's how it works. And I appreciate that on a level that I really can't explain. But I can't stand cities like Houston, which they've been there forever. For 70 years, it floods when it rains. It still floods when it rains. When I was there in October, my car got damaged because of the flooding. And all we want to do is just like turn my car around to a city official's house and scrape his face against the bottom skirting of my ground effects and just be like, see what you've done, you miserable fuck. But I was wrong. I was in Houston, and I shouldn't have been in Houston because I know how that city is, and I should have been smarter and never gone there. Austin is another city I don't like because of its excessive blueness. And I'm not a political hater because I have a lot of friends on both sides of the spectrum, but I just hate seeing blue policies at work, which is why they had a homeless problem. Thank God for Greg Abbott, because he fixed that. And I think that more governors need to fix their cities if they keep embracing the homeless problem instead of vaulting them out if they don't want to get to work and don't want to, start treatments for their mental illness. You don't collect homeless people. They're not a worthwhile card in your fucking house of cards, okay? At that, we are done with this video. You guys be well. Drink your Black Rifle coffee. Be angry at all times if you can. And if you can't, well, fuck you. Have a great day. Where's that in broadcast? Yes.